All right. Well, I have the honor of introducing you to Spencer Sherman. And Spencer was referred to us by our #1 fan, Bill Laser. And so Spencer, thank you so much for joining. And so Spencer is the founding partner and CEO of Abacus, and it's a financial services firm. And a little bit about Spencer is he's a certified mindfulness teacher with Search Inside Yourself, which is sourced at Google. And he also teaches a Mastery of Money program for NYU. And a fun fact for about Stuart is he started meditating 30 years ago after he impulsively ran into a burning building to retrieve his computer. Kind of tells you where his priorities were, and they're not there anymore. So Spencer is here to talk about us being enough and feeling like we're enough. So Spencer, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Christy. Thank you, Cindy, and Cheryl, and Nita. It's just wonderful to be here. That was a worthless computer that I ran into the burning building to retrieve. Not even, I mean, even if it was a working computer, still not worth it. So good to see everybody. I mean, what I'm really noticing about this room is this community that PRG has. And I think community is so powerful, especially when it comes to money, because money is this something we tend to hide out around, or we're impulsive with, and bringing this conscious intention to transform our relationship to money, to make wiser money decisions in this group setting, I think is something that is very special. And I love seeing all the faces on the screen, and I want to encourage everyone to, keep your video on, stay as engaged as possible, because I have a tendency to get distracted around money, to avoid the topic. And this is based on a lot of conditioning from our early childhoods, which I'm going to talk about. So I titled the presentation Enough, and I've got a question mark and an exclamation mark, because do we have enough? Do you have enough? There's this, and I also have this exclamation mark, because I feel like no one feels they have enough. So when I was growing up, it was this burning desire of mine to figure out how much was enough, because everyone seemed to want more of everything, more money, more houses, more friends, more of everything, more time. And I kept on this quest to find out what is enough. And then I become a financial advisor, and I'm working with wealthy clients, and I'm assured that these people are going to tell me they have enough, but of course they don't. So when do we say we have enough? I say it's time. It's time. And we'll get into that here in this presentation as to what's this powerful, even liberating quality of enough that I want to talk about today. All right, next slide. All right, so why is it that we have such a hard time with money? Well, it's pretty emotional. And, I just want to invite you in the chat here, what are you feeling right now around money? As you're coming to this presentation, what's arising? I'm feeling stressed, not just because I'm speaking, but because I'm speaking about money. And I have a long history with money, and I've done some foolish things with money. Like I mentioned, ran into a building that was on fire. So I feel some anxiousness, and I'm not alone, because most Americans feel anxious about their financial situation, and it's across all income levels, all wealth levels. It's like the biggest stress in our lives. Stan wrote down inflation, stress, and the current economic situation. Inflation is making our relationship with money even more stressful, very depleted, Chris writes. This is great. I love this engagement here around money. Uncertainty, Elizabeth says, yes, looking at near future, my financial responsibilities to support my mother, long-term care supporting costs for my father. Yes, Melanie, that is such a universal issue that so many of us are either dealing with or are going to deal with or have dealt with. So thank you for bringing that one up. Worries, Romy says. Yes, it's just you're in good company, I would say, around money. We hide it. Stock and bond market volatility, watching my burn rate carefully. I think, you putting these out in the chat enables, it's in a way of acknowledging what's the truth of what's happening with money. And just that is something that's very rare and very forwarding for us to just acknowledge what's happening with our finances instead of being in denial around it. So acknowledging that stress, I feel, is a very healthy thing to do. All right, so where does this stress come from? Well, we're going to go back to childhood. That's where so many things are formed. And we receive these messages that may sound kind of innocent, like don't talk about money, money equals security, more is better, I'm not good with money, there's nothing more important than money. Yeah, Craig just wrote, older than I'd like to be for the money in my 401k plan. That's very good, Greg. So yeah, in that is stress, is that, will I have enough in this 401k plan? But these childhood money beliefs, we receive these, they're sort of inherited when we're 5, 6, 7, 8 years of age. We absorb the emotions of our parents, and pretty much our parents, our caregivers, were stressed around money, were worried about finances, and maybe they were posturing to try to deflect that or hide it. But as children, we're very intuitive. We know they were stressed around money. We know that, or they were confused around money. And as a 5 and 6 year old, we were confused. This topic of money occupies a lot of space in the house, and yet it's abstract. So when you've got that confusion, and then you've got parents, caregivers who are stressed around it, the confusion, the stress, and then the messages we receive, all of that together creates these very fixed beliefs. They become locked in our brains. And often we don't even know that we have these messages. I didn't even know I had the message. There's nothing more important than money. And that's the message that enables me to run into that burning building. So let's go to how do I think about money? I think of money as an iceberg. So the tip of the iceberg is 401k plans and budgeting and taxes and investments and mortgages. It's all the stuff that we relate to 99% of the time when we're thinking about money. And yet then there's this submerged part of the iceberg. And that's this hidden part that we don't talk about very much. And that's where these fixed beliefs lie. Like, I'm not good with money, or money grows on trees or doesn't grow on trees, or money's the most important thing, or money equals security, or don't spend money, or don't save money. These are all fixed beliefs that past participants and clients have said to me. And so there's these fixed beliefs, there's this fear and anxiety. And this is what I've noticed after over 30 years of being a financial advisor. What I've noticed is it's not learning more about 401k plans or investing or budgeting or taxes. And that stuff is incrementally helpful. What is really going to transform ourselves around money is if we can start addressing the submerged part of the iceberg, if we can become aware of maybe a fixed belief that we're not even aware of yet. That's what drives our behavior. So I work with many Wharton MBA clients. And even though these people are so skilled, so knowledgeable about finance, they're driven by their fixed beliefs. So we see this with everyone, that everyone is more guided by their emotion and their fixed beliefs often than by the evidence or by their common sense. So the good news about that is it's a level playing field, and we can all advance if we're willing to look at this submerged part of the iceberg. All right. Let's go to the next one. So how much is enough? So a journalist asked John D. Rockefeller in 1916, and Rockefeller, hesitated and said, the definition of enough is a little bit more. Well, I love that definition, right? That's perfect. It's it basically he's saying you're never going to get to enough by accumulating more money. It's just not going to happen. And I think that was very insightful. Maybe I'm giving him a little bit too much credit, but I think his answer was a teaching for all of us, that if you think of, and I've witnessed this with my clients, is as they go from $1 million to 2 million or 5 million or 10 million, they don't seem less stressed. Often they seem more anxious about their finances. They don't get to that place of enough. Yes, Vanessa said 3 trillion in retirement losses so far. So there's a lot of news, negative news right now. And we'll talk about that. So I wanted to contrast John Rockefeller with Chuck Feeney. Chuck Feeney lives in San Francisco. He's still alive. He emigrated here from Ireland many years ago, and he started Duty Free International, made $8 billion. And he lives on less than 1% of that 8 billion. Most of that 8 billion he gave away to charities. He's very engaged. He's flying all over the world, doesn't own his home, doesn't own a car, flies coach. So he determined what's enough for himself. And he said it's less than 1% of what I have. So it's possible to get to this place of enoughness. And I'm going to share, why is this so valuable for us? What's the benefit of getting to enough? So we're going to get to that as well. So if you notice yourself saying, I will have enough when, you might never arrive there, because we're training our brains. There's this neuroplasticity in our brains. So neuroscientists have discovered that, and this is actually good news, that our brains have this neuroplasticity, and it's not just till age 21, which is what we used to think. It's all the way through for the rest of our lives. These minds are very nimble and flexible and take on new information and can change. The neural pathways in these brains can change. And when we keep telling our brain that I will have enough when my kids go off to college, or when my kids become independent, or I will have enough once I get to 5 million or a million, or once I buy that home or second home or retire, we're giving the brain the message that enough arrives in the future. And a brain trained for that future will never actually arrive, will never be able to rest in the place of contentment. So start to become aware of when you say that to yourself, that the future is going to deliver me this sense of enough. And what we're doing in this present, right now, in this moment, is we're opening to the possibility of experiencing a sense of enough right in this moment. That's where we're headed. So how much is enough income? Well, there have been many studies on this, and Daniel Kahneman has probably done the most on this. And what his study and most of the other studies suggest is that happiness and income are correlated, but only up until a certain point. So in other words, as you go from earning 25 or 40,000 to 80,000 to 100,000, your happiness levels, your wellness levels should increase. That's what we're seeing. Now, this is for thousands of people, so there might be exceptions to this graph. And there have been some studies that conflict with this a little bit and say that 100,000 is really out more towards 500,000. You keep seeing increasing benefits. But the main point is that at some point, this happiness level plateaus. We don't get additional increments of happiness so much as our income increases. And it makes sense, right? We learn about this in economics, that there's this diminishing return from having more of something, like having more ice cream or something. And at some point we start to level off. So yes, if you're well below, then this is based, dependent on geography, dependent on family size. But if you're well below the $100,000 mark, yes, it might add a lot to your life to increase that income. If you're a lot above it, then you have to question, am I working for this money, or am I working because I absolutely love my job? Because going from 300 to 500 to 600 may not produce a lot of extra internal joy, contentment, happiness within. So it's made me sort of reevaluate my workaholic tendencies. And also, as the markets have been coming down, and like all of you have been expressing the losses, inflation, maybe if we're lucky enough where we're up in the $200,000 or $300,000 range, maybe a setback is not going to decrease our income. Maybe it's going to keep us right where we were. All right, so let's go. I want to look at this now. The reason I have this monthly spending example up here is that I feel there's a power in knowing your numbers. And most often when I ask people of all income wealth levels, how much do you spend a month? People often have no idea, or they're really way off. And it's not about getting to the penny, but getting within maybe 10, 15% of the right number is really helpful to know your numbers. So I'm just giving an example here. I like putting savings for retirement and other goals at the top. Pay yourself first. So this person is putting aside $1,500 a month for that. Their fixed expenses, which would be for rent, utilities, car payments, etc. That's $5,000 a month. And then discretionary vacations, dining out, gifts, that's $3,000 a month. And then $500 a month for philanthropy. And it totals $10,000 a month. So I also have philanthropy in here because so much of what we're doing here is cultivating a mind that is much more likely to be successful, much more likely to make wise decisions with our finances. And generosity at any level, the brain doesn't know how much we give. So being generous at any level helps the mind relax. So if you're in fear right now, like often somebody will ask me, well, I have no money. I can't afford, I might be evicted from my apartment. What should I do? And I'll often say, give. Now, it doesn't have to be money, and it can be any amount. It could be $1, but you can also give time or resources. But the act of generosity helps relax our minds. It helps put us into that parasympathetic nervous system where we're most likely to be creative. We're most likely to get the job. And when we walk into the interview, we're most likely to see the opportunities in front of us. All right, let's go to the next one. So I want to talk a little bit about calculating enough. So there's two things we're doing today is we're learning about calculating enough. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about cultivating enough, because the calculating enough is the numbers part. And then the cultivating enough is cultivating this sense of actually being content with what one has in a world, in a noisy world that's always about more. And most of us keep wanting more. And I've seen this over and over with clients. So we have to work on both levels. We have to work on the numbers, and we also have to work on our own internal sense of enoughness in order to arrive. All right, so Rebecca, in this example here, she wants to quit her job as a marketing executive and be financially independent about 8 years from today. And she knows that she is going to be spending $10,000 a month is what it's going to cost her to live. And she forecasts that in 2030, she's going to have other income from real estate or Social Security of about $3,000 a month. So the difference is $7,000 a month or $84,000 a year. And if you take her money, like her 401k plan money and all the other assets she has, if you put that into a very globally diversified 70% in equities, 30% in bonds portfolio, she'll need about 20 to 25 times that amount, that difference, that $84,000, which comes out to about 2 million. So I know I just said a lot right there, and I don't want to get bogged down too much with the details, but basically what I'm saying is that if you have a portfolio that's well spread out around the world, it's got mostly equities, but some bonds, you need something like 20 to 25 times the amount you're going to be withdrawing in order to allow yourself to take out the $7,000 a month and then increase that over the years for inflation. So that's about what you need. And the reason why I'm emphasizing this is that knowing these numbers is, I find, also very helpful for the mind. It helps us relax to know the numbers. It can be scary. Like maybe you're saying to yourself, well, Rebecca's very close to my numbers. I don't have anywhere near $2 million. I have $10,000 in my savings. And how am I going to get to 2 million? Even if it seems impossible to get there, it's still, what I've experienced is it's still very helpful to know the numbers rather than be in vagueness around them. And it's once you know the numbers, then you can start moving towards them. And even if you never actually get there, the movement towards getting there will actually has all these good positive ripple effects on it. All right, so let's go to the next one. So I've been, a lot of people will say that Jeff Bezos is very wealthy because he's got billions of dollars, or Elon Musk, but I say you don't know how wealthy someone is unless you do this ratio here. So what's the withdrawal from the portfolio that they're doing each year divided by the amount that they have? In Rebecca's case, she's taking out $84,000 a year divided by about $2 million that she has in her portfolio. So she's withdrawing about 4% a year. And I consider that the sweet spot, that she's taking out an amount that's a sustainable withdrawal. So I would say that she's wealthy in this situation, that she's got enough because she's doing that sustainable withdrawal. If you start taking out 6% or 7% a year, you are sacrificing the future, or you're necessitating an overly risky portfolio. If you spend only 2 or 3% a year, then you're sacrificing now the present. And either one isn't very beneficial. I mean, I've had many clients who have sacrificed the present, and they get to be in their 80s and they realize, why didn't I take those epic vacations when I was in my 60s and 70s? And now that I'm in my 80s, I don't feel like doing those big trips anymore. And I'm also seeing today that more and more of the next generation of our kids don't actually want all this money, or have this sense that it may not be that helpful for them. My son actually told me he doesn't want any inheritance. So, I'm seeing that in many clients today. So it's this wake-up call, like how much is enough, and making sure that have this balance, that we're not spending too little or spending too much. All right, and that speedometer has been very helpful for me and clients. So this is sort of the irony of emotion. I wanted to speak to this because of all the volatility that we're having today with the markets, with inflation. There's, you may be saying in the chat, where are you today? Are you in fear? Are you in nervousness? Are you in optimism, elation? Where are you on this chart here today? I'd say most of us are probably in nervousness or fear, is my guess. I'm curious if anybody's in optimism. If you look at from a numbers perspective, if you just look at the evidence, this is actually a time to start moving towards optimism in terms of investing. Because when the markets are low like this, the potential returns have been tremendous, historically speaking. So it's the irony of emotion is that most of us get overly fearful at the bottom and overly overconfident at the top. So that's an issue. That's a problem. And I'm so guilty of this. I remember when I came into the investment business, it was just after the crash of '87. And I sold all my investments. I'm going to confess to you all, I sold all my investments after the crash of 1987. Fortunately, I didn't have a ton of money, but of course, I've actually done the math. What would have happened if I had just let that money sit there in the market and had some patience? I always say patience is bitter, but its fruit is sweet. Had I had some patience back in 1987, 88, I would have a lot more money today than I have. But I got so scared. The market bottomed in '87, and I was in absolute fear, not realizing that actually it's an opportunity. It's a time to be more optimistic when things are down that much with the investment markets. So it's so many of the things that I'm presenting here today are counterintuitive. They're almost like Aikido moves with our finances, like the idea of being generous when you don't have very much. Well, even if you, and whatever you have, to be generous. We're countering our tendencies, which tend to keep us in a distracted state, like head in the sand state, or a very fearful or nervous state. So yes, Stan says, buy on the dip, dollar cost average. I love that, Stan. And yes, we will share these slides. That's the way to do it. It's that, and I think we can make analogies to the job market as well. Is certainly when things are heading south in the economy and there's fewer job offers, we can start to go into that fearful place, but there's still opportunities. And we have to remember there's probably if everybody else is fearful about getting a job and we can somehow do something to simmer that fear, we're more likely, we might have more opportunities when the market goes down than when the job market is stellar. Maybe we have to get very super clear on what it is we're looking for when things are not as rosy, because there's not 10 opportunities coming at us. There might only be one or two. But often if you look at starting businesses, for example, more businesses were started in 2021 than in any other year. So despite the pandemic, despite all the fear around that, all the uncertainty around that, more people decided to start new businesses than any other time in US history. All right, let's go to the next one. So here we are, we're training this brain for contentment, for success. My thing about money is, in being a financial advisor, I'd love to tell you all that you need a financial advisor. This world is as complex as medicine, and you need a financial advisor. And the truth is that you have all the wisdom and common sense within yourself. You do. And I'm going to put out a special plug here for women, because often women don't get the same education growing up around money. I know my sister didn't get the same financial education that I did from my father. And the New York Times just released did an article on a study that was released at UC Davis saying that women have actually performed way better than men when it comes to investing. Like, how is that possible? It's because of patience. That who would think that patience would actually make us more money? Women are patient. They don't sell their investments when the markets crash. They stay put, and they've made considerably more money over the last 10, 20 years. And these are studies with Vanguard and Merrill Lynch. So looking at portfolios and returns over time, they've very convincing studies saying that overconfidence does not help you with your finances. Using your common sense and doing what you know to be the right thing to do, that's what's helpful. So I'm going to share some things here. Let's see, I'm just checking on time. I think we're good. All right. So gratitude. These are things, a lot of these things you're probably doing or you know about. Here's my spin on gratitude is often with money in the material world, we forget what we have. So not just being grateful for your life or for your friends in your life, your partners in your life, but also for the things in your life, the stuff you have, to look in the garage and notice the things that maybe you've neglected. That helps fill us up. That helps us give us this sense of enoughness. Gratitude for, even if you only have $5,000 saved, that's more than most people on the planet. So feeling gratitude for what you have, again, helps decrease the fear. If we can decrease fear, we're going to launch each of us into our common sense, into our wisdom. And that's a good thing, right? All right, generosity. I've talked about generosity. It's another antidote to fear. And again, you don't need to do it with money. You can do it with time or resources. Undoing comparison and envy. So this is a particularly kind of nasty one in the material world. It's so easy to compare ourselves. And I've certainly done this, and it's gotten me in trouble. Buying a house just because I wanted my house to look like my best friend's house, wanting to earn as much as other people. That comparison, that envy kind of keeps us from opening to our own values. What's really going to bring us the most fulfillment, the most happiness in life? Maybe it's not working 70 hours a week like our neighbor or our best friend. So what do I do with envy and comparison? Well, it's another Aikido counterintuitive move. I teach a whole course on this, but I'll give you the essence of it is that instead of envying those people that have more than you, that have it all together, you actually wish them even more success. So it's counterintuitive, and that's what helped me with a business partner of mine. It straitjacketed our relationship. It kept me from being more successful. And I started doing the unthinkable, wishing even more success, and it turned things around. All right, this is a note from Vanessa. My dad sat me down at the dining table and introduced me to a professor. He said women usually live longer, and he didn't know if this would be around by the time I'd retire. Yes, that's great. That's great. That's great. Great awareness there. That yes, and then Stan said, remove emotion from the equation by having a fin. Yeah, so I'm going to say to that, Stan, I'll answer that question too. That financial advisors can be that unbiased sounding board, that objective sounding board. I've also seen it work really well with two friends, maybe not best friends, connecting and agreeing to be money allies for each other. And I have it down here on this chart here, that having a money ally, it could be a professional money ally, a non-professional one, is so helpful. Asking our friend, what are my biases with money? What are the fixed beliefs that maybe I'm not aware of? Should I buy this house given my situation, or this second home? That kind of thing is like sort of taking it out of darkness, out of secrecy, which is where I know when I'm about to make a big purchase, I don't tell anyone because I don't want anyone to tell me not to do it. That's when I know I'm in trouble. Let's see. And then someone said, why don't women get the same exposure education? That's a great question, Hiromi. There's a professor at Stanford who talks about this. I think it's a cultural thing that women are, it's just these cultural attitudes that are hard to undo. And we see a lot of fathers, who tend to carry the financial knowledge. They'll favor the sons over the daughters. It is changing. And the irony is that even with less education, women are performing better in general with their finances. All right, let's see. I think I got most of the questions here. I'm going to leave some time at the end here for questions. All right, let me go through a few of these. Be aware of the influence of your inherited money beliefs. It's really important. So as we gain awareness of a belief that we have, so I have a friend who just became aware at the age of 70 that she grew up with this belief that you should not save money, that every time they saved money, they lost it. They did risky investments, they lost it. And when she took away from that, is just spend it as soon as you get it, because it's going to disappear anyway. And then it was a great wake up for her. Like, she realized, that's why I don't have any retirement savings, because I've had this belief, and she wasn't even aware of it, that kind of propelled me to keep spending. All right, upad. So this is my favorite 4-letter word. It's not my 18-year-old daughter's favorite four-letter word, but it means under promise, over deliver. I think it's one of the best things one can do, to tell your clients, to tell everybody in your life, that to under promise, that I'm going to deliver that report to you next week, and then to get the report to them tomorrow. That is, it's a way of de-escalating stress in your life, is tell your spouse you're going to be home at 6:30 and get home at 6. This is what puts us into that more relaxed state. And what I've seen in my 30 years is our clients don't care when you're going to get them the report. They just want the report to be delivered on time. That's the only thing they care about. So this is a huge thing. We actually had to fire someone who did A+ work, but he kept telling clients that I'm going to deliver this report in a week, and it would take him a month. And the clients complained about that, even though he was doing A+ work. So the last one I'm going to mention here is know your numbers and cultivate enough. So having a basic sense of the numbers, even if they're scary, is so informative. I'm going to say liberating over time. I know it might feel like crazy to know your numbers when you don't like your numbers, but trust me on this, good things will come from knowing your numbers, being more connected to them, but not so connected. I want to say that you're checking the stock market every hour or every day or even every week. That is a crazy thing. I'll just say that we get too much information. It's too much to know what the market's doing every moment. It's like if you knew what your house was priced at, if you had a ticker tape going by on your front lawn for your house and it was fluctuating in value all the time, would drive us crazy. And I think that's what the market does. And the media loves it. It creates this fury, but the markets are really quite boring. They've just actually gone up over 10-year periods. There's been just a couple of 10-year periods when the markets have not been positive. And over 15-year periods, they've always been positive. So in the longer term, I think the markets, you could say, are almost boring. In fact, I say, find other ways to have excitement in your life. Keep your financial life, your investing life, almost very simple, very boring. And this is not just coming from me. It's coming from Nobel Prize winning economist Eugene Fama in 2013 said, nobody knows the future and nobody can cherry pick stocks consistently. And that if we just take a very simple approach to finances and have patience with our investing and spread it out into global investments, thousands of companies all over the world, will actually do best. All right, so now we're going to go to, I want to do this practice here. Let me just see if there's any key questions before attitude of gratitude. Great. Let's see. Great. Okay. All right. We're going to keep your questions coming, or comments coming in the chat. We'll get to them in a few minutes. But for now, I want to do something. So we just calculated this enough. I showed you how to do that. And now we want to cultivate this sense of enough within ourselves. And this is a practice that I've been doing for many years. And we'll just play in the sandbox today and try it out. And, let's let go of any expectations of what's going to happen in this 1 5-minute practice. But I'm going to invite each of us to find a comfortable posture, to sit up tall, to have your feet flat on the floor, your legs uncrossed, your shoulders relaxed, softening the shoulders. Your back of your neck is long, the eyes gently close, and just tuning in to what's arising in this moment. Maybe you notice the heart beating. You're aware of your feet pressing into your socks, your shoes, the floor. Aware of the temperature on the skin of your face. And feeling the gravity of your bottom sitting on this chair. This presence that you have, and allowing the body to just breathe itself, that we don't have to do anything. That these few minutes here, letting go of doing, inviting yourself to just be, letting go of trying to figure anything out or get anywhere, letting go of what happened before this or what's to come. And sensing this presence that you have. Letting go of any effort with breathing, just letting the breath flow. and imagining this presence with your eyes closed, that this presence extends beyond the perimeter of the body. Imagining yourself taking up a lot of space. So aware of the front of you, to the right of you, behind you, to the left of you, above and below. Just sensing this spacious presence that you have. With the eyes closed, imagining that you're seeing out with your peripheral vision. So you have this broad, wide aperture. This sense of having enough presence, this fullness, substantiality of who you are, that this presence is what makes all the difference when you're at work, when you're in a job interview. And then just, again, we're just playing in the sandbox here, saying to yourself the possibility that I have enough. I have enough resources. I have enough skills. I have enough intelligence. I have enough common sense. I have enough sense of humor. I have enough time. In a world where no one thinks they have enough time, I have enough time. I have enough friends. I have enough money. I have enough. Just imagining that for a moment, that possibility that in a world where no one thinks they have enough of anything, this possibility that enough is possible, and in fact, it only exists right in this moment, that it's not in the future, it's right now. I have enough. Sensing that possibility, the mind might be fighting it, might be saying, are you crazy? You only have this much in the bank and you need to do so much more in your life. But in this moment, can you find this place of I have enough? And then I do enough in a world where no one thinks they do enough. I do enough at work. I do enough at home. I do enough. And then finally, I am enough, just as I am. Just imagining for a moment that none of your New Year's resolutions come to be. I am enough. Just as I am, without any improvement or edits. Oscar Wilde, the writer, said, be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. I am enough. I am the best person to be myself. I do it best. I am enough just as I am. And just sensing this for another moment, this possibility that what would it be like to show up at work, show up for a job interview with this sense of fullness within yourself, this sense of sufficiency. And maybe you might also notice maybe there's a little bit less grasping happening in the mind. Maybe that mind can start to relax a little bit around all its wants. And then as you're ready, staying connected to yourself, staying connected to this sense of this sufficiency, enoughness, whatever you've cultivated here, staying connected to it as you open your eyes, and just keeping a little bit of your attention on my voice as you open your eyes. Enough health. Yes. Thank you for that, Gardner. Yes. Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone. So this is a practice that has been invaluable to me and for so many that I've offered it to, as a way of countering the tendencies that we have to keep grasping for more. And the irony is, here's the irony, that the grasping for more actually gets us less. That when we're in this place of ease, of contentment, of course, we're more likely to get hired. Of course, we're more likely to make the sale. If we're in sales, we're more likely to perform well at any task at work when we're in that place of sufficiency and ease. All right. Yes. Okay, I'm going to come back to these questions. So here's a few action steps, and I want to take questions. So I offer all these tools and mindfulness exercises and insights to money, both on the practical side and on the inner side with money at spencer-sherman.com. You can sign up for my newsletter. You can also just if you just send I think in the chat, you can send a direct message to me or Craig just put your email, and we'll know to add you to the newsletter. So that's a quick way to do it. Know your expenses, your savings, your income, know your numbers. I also have these fearless finance sessions every Tuesday. They're at no charge. You can join them, and to keep cultivating this sense of enough. All right. Well, now I want to answer some questions. And so let's see. Okay, there are the which meditation apps do you recommend? Yes, waking up is good. I think, I would sample them. I think they all give you the ability to sample them. I think my sense with meditation is that a lot of us turn meditation into another to-do item. And the way that I've made the most progress is really looking to feel motivated to meditate. Find meditations. They're all over the internet. I have meditations that are often oriented slightly towards money in some way, or this sense of enoughness. You can find them at also my Abacus website, but there's many on my spencer-sherman.com website. You'll get more on the newsletter as well. I have an extra, I have an extra 10,000 in my checking balance because I'm afraid to put it in my savings account. What should I do with that money? Well, Marilyn, I can't give any specific advice, but I would say that when the markets are heading down, things go in surges, and when the markets are going down or up, they tend to continue in that direction. And chances are, if you put that money in your 401k plan, it will go down. Let's just say, did I get muted? Okay. It's likely that it will continue to go down, but that this is as good a time as almost any to invest, with the markets being down 20%, in some cases 30%. As long as you have patience, as long as you're investing for a longer term goal, I think it's a great time to invest. And you just have to know that, I think what I was trying to get across with that up and down graph is that up and down graph is forever. We're never going to live in a world where things just go up. And the sooner we recognize that, and it's taken me a long time to really get this, because you have to get it on an internal level, that we don't need to freak out when the economy goes down, because it's inevitable that it will have cycles of going down. And those are often the best times to invest. We have to sort of do what's counter to the general trends. All right, let's see. All right.
Okay, one more question. Yes. And then we've got to wrap up. Yes. Spencer, this has been really good. Anybody have one question that they can ask Spencer real quickly? All right. Well, we are out of time. Spencer, there's a couple things. What the the statement that you made towards the beginning, a brain trained for the future will never arrive. That is really an incredible quote. I've written it down and I'm going to remember that always. I think I'm one of many who focuses on the future, and the reminder of staying in the present, I think was wonderful. And I loved your calculation about the sweet spot for retirement withdrawals. I think that's great. And then another key takeaway for me is the sense of fullness within yourself. You know, we have so many people who are interviewing, and we know for a fact financial situations make an impact on your job decisions or your job search progress, and we know that. So that whole thought of fullness within yourself as you walk into an interview, or when you're looking for a job, or when you're, you know, just contemplating a job transition, it's really a big deal. It's really a big deal. So thank you.
It is. And yeah, I mean, I was going to say, you know, Jim Carrey, he came out and said the reason that he finally quit acting is he got to this place where he said, I have enough, I do enough, I am enough. And it took him a long time to get there. But yes, I think training our minds for the future, it's not to say that we don't plan for the future.
Right.
We still can plant the seeds, but we're not attached to, you know, the what those seeds end up sprouting, that we're living more in the present and planning for the future as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Spencer. I've already signed up for your newsletter. I took a quick peek on your website. Phenomenal content. So thank you. Thank you all. And thank you all for joining us. We'll see you in, what is it? 2 weeks, Cheryl?
Yes.
2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks. Mid-July, July 15th.
Okay, so we'll see you in a few weeks, and thank you, Spencer. We'll send out the recording. We'll send out the slides, the link to his website. Spencer, thank you so much for your talk.
Thank you, everybody.
And thanks for the meditation.
Wonderful.
Start our day off.
Yes.
Great job, Spencer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Cheryl, Cindy, Christy, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Nita. Yeah.
Thank you. All right.